Good morning. My name is Cutler Cleveland. I'll be conducting this webinar this morning on Environmental Science, a new online textbook. I am a professor of Earth and Environment at Boston University and a co-author of this book with my colleague Robert Kaufmann. The purpose of the webinar today is threefold. The first is to demonstrate the web-based textbook and how it could be used in your class. The second purpose is to demonstrate the support that we have for implementing, adopting, and using the textbook. And the third purpose is to answer any questions that you have in regards to the textbook and how it could be used, the adoption process, and so on. And in that regard, when you logged into this GoToWebinar meeting, you accessed a control panel. And on that control panel is a section that is labeled questions. And so you can open that section, type in a question, and they will accumulate in a queue. And at the end of the webinar, I will go through and answer those questions. And I'll also be available to answer questions on follow-up phone calls or emails if that works for you. So let me just talk a little bit about the background of this book and how it came to be. As I mentioned, I'm a professor at Boston University. I've been at BU for 26 years. I'm in the Department of Earth and Environment, and I've been teaching introductory environmental science for about 20 years. I also teach upper-level classes on energy. My background in terms of research is in life cycle energy analysis, energy markets, and the connection between energy and sustainability. So in that regard, my co-author and I, Robert Kaufmann, wrote a book on environmental science. He also teaches the class with me at BU. We teach approximately 100 to 150 students a semester. And we, in the experience of teaching this class, came to be dissatisfied with the current textbooks, the traditional print textbooks, and their ability to deliver information to students in the digital age. And in particular, we saw an increasing gap between these $150 textbooks that students carried around in their textbook, in their backpack, with traditional forms of media and pedagogical material, and the experience that we use in the classroom, the use of media, the use of the web to present content, and obviously a disconnect between those print books and how today's 18-year-old live in the world, which is in a highly electronic world and being used to delivering and consuming content of all types electronically. So we wanted to create a textbook that could meet those changing needs. We also like the platform that you'll see because it has a very easy ability for both authors and instructors to create content and share it online. We can include video, high-resolution images, and other web-based content that traditional print media simply cannot do. We're able to update this content according to our schedule and not the publisher's schedule, as you traditionally do with a regular print book. You can easily take this textbook and convert it into a course, because what you'll see here is a book that's wrapped around a learning management system, an LMS as it's known in the trade, which has ability to give exams, self-assessment, assignments, everything done online with a simple grade book and communication structure, which enables student to student and student to teacher communication. Another feature of this book that we really like is its lower cost to students. We're at Boston University, we're under tremendous pressure from the administration to try and lower the cost of educational materials to students. The book you'll see this morning costs $50 to students. They own that book forever. And the traditional book in this market is twice that or more, as you undoubtedly know. And a nice benefit of working in this environment on this platform produced by Trunity, our technology partner, is that authors earn up to 70% royalties, which is much more favorable than a traditional print book. So those are some of the motivations for producing what you'll see this morning. So what are the benefits of an online living digital textbook? For students, all the content is on the web, and all what you'll see here presented this morning is available with any web browser, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Explorer, and so on any device. So any laptop, any pad, any smartphone. So anywhere you have a connection to the web, you can always access that content. And also in our technology pipeline is an app which will enable you to access the content when you're offline as well. Students have a single sign-on to all resources, so they have, when you create a course around this book, students can sign in and they have access to all the content and standard state-of-the-art searching and navigation that you see across the web. It has a highlighted annotation tool so students can personalize the content for their own personal learning needs. We have a safe social network. That simply means that when you create a course, you as an instructor control who has access and can see all activity and communication and work online. I mentioned this becomes a permanent online reference. Students own the version that they buy forever. For some of our students, this is particularly important. In our department, we grant bachelor's degrees in environmental science and environmental analysis and policy. So this introductory environmental science course is a gateway course for many of our students, and they actually use this book in subsequent classes, and so it becomes a convenient reference. Obviously, that's not pertinent, relevant for all students, but for some, it's quite important. And I mentioned the cost savings to students. So for instructors, again, you have this single sign-on to all resources. As I'll demonstrate, one of the real benefits of this way of teaching a class is instructors can customize content. You can add and subtract and reorder content. You can add assignments, you can add quizzes, and put them in places in the sequence of the book and the course where it is appropriate for your particular class. You have the LMS provides the ability to manage and view online class activity, and the content is up to date. One of the beauties of this platform from an author's perspective, which I think is transmitted to teachers, is the ability to really keep content up to date. So you can, any particular change that you make, it might be simply adding a comma or fixing a typo or changing a statistic to be more up to date, and you click submit, and that change is pushed through to copies that are being used by adopters. Now, as an instructor, you can choose whether or not to accept these changes or not, but it's a really amazing and powerful way to keep content up to date. So the book itself is structured in a meta sense like a traditional textbook. We have 24 chapters that cover the important natural and social science foundations of environmental science. But from there, we really depart and have become a very different type of textbook. We have videos, lots of videos, hundreds of high-resolution images, an embedded glossary, and other features that you'll see which really bring content alive. We have a large multiple-choice question test bank that's integrated into this learning management system that I'll demonstrate. We have other resources for instructors, which I'll also demonstrate, including PowerPoint and assignments and so on. I mentioned the price, and we tested this out at a couple of universities last year, and this fall the book is currently being used at 15 or so universities and several AP Environmental Science classes in high schools. And I'll actually demonstrate, since we do have a few people on this call who are AP Environmental Science teachers, I'm going to demonstrate how we have aligned our content to the AP Environmental Science exam and course. So to sum this up in a nutshell, we've integrated three important aspects of what the web can provide in terms of education. One is a delivery of content, whether it's a course book or a video or whatever the content might be, a learning management system, a way to organize and deliver that content for instructors and students, and collaboration, a social networking capability, the ability to, within a closed class environment, to send student to student and faculty or instructor to student communication, commenting, forums, and the like. So with that overview, let me now proceed to actually show you the book. So I'm going to pull up my browser here and navigate to the home page of the book. So I'll first demonstrate the book and its functionality, and then describe how you would actually go about adopting it and using it in your class. So this is the home page for the book. The title of the book is Environmental Science, and what you see spilling down the page are the chapters of the book. As you can see, we have 24 chapters, and clicking on any title of a chapter will take you to a chapter landing page. And so this is the landing page for chapter 1, and it reveals now the elements of chapter 1. And so we start out every chapter with a set of learning objectives, what the student should get out of the chapter after completing the material, and then the actual contents of the chapter. So these are the individual sections of the chapter. Then for each chapter we also have a summary, we have a list of key terms, a list of review questions, and also we have between 1 and 3 case studies in every chapter. And so any particular chapter has exactly the same structure, and you can navigate to individual sections of the chapter from this chapter landing page. Before we dive into the actual content and I show you what the actual experience of using the book is like, I'd like to show you some of the navigational features for the site. So over here on the left-hand side, we have the chapters of the book. And so this table of contents is available on every page in the book, no matter where you are. So you can always get back to a particular chapter or the main landing page for the book by clicking on that particular chapter. Up here in the upper right, we have a search window, and it works like any traditional search functionality. So for example, if I typed in food web and search for food web, I will get search returns for that particular search term. And if I click on this first return here, I will be taken to, let's see, this looks like a section in chapter 5. Notice over here in the left-hand menu, it shows me I'm now in chapter 5, which is one of our ecology chapters, and this is a section on food chains and food webs. While we're on this page, I can demonstrate one of the nice features that a web-based book can provide, and that is a dynamic glossary. So you notice the term food web is highlighted in a dark blue. If I click on that, I see that that term is in fact a glossary term. clicking on it reveals the definition for that term. So the student has a definition right there at hand. And clicking on any of these terms reveals the definition for those terms. So so the search function works very much like it does for any other website. So if I'm back here at the main landing page for the book again, another textbook-wide feature is the glossary. So I click on this tab labeled Glossary. It reveals in alphabetical order all 1,173 entries in our glossary. And so you can actually search for a term. So if I go up to the search menu for the glossary and type in food web, it automatically starts to autofill and identifies the terms that have, in this case, food web in those results. So the students have dynamic access to the glossary throughout the entire textbook. Another feature for instructors, and I should note here that I'm logged in as an instructor, so these editing tools that I'm showing you up here along the top, some of them are available to instructors, but in the student view, which I'll show you in a minute, they would not be available. So if I go over here to this editing wheel over here on the right, and I click on this, and one of the things I can do is change the sequence of content. And I can do this on any page, whether I'm at a chapter landing page or within a section of a book. And if I click on Content Sequence, so I now see the contents of the page, and I can drag and drop material and change the order of the content. So if I want to teach succession before the chapter on biomes, I can drag and drop that, click Save Order, tells me that it's been rearranged, and now you can see that succession is now before biomes. So this gives instructors a very powerful way, I'm just going to move this back here, a powerful way to customize a textbook and to teach in the order and in the sequence that they choose to do for their class. So while we're on this landing page, for those of you who are instructors in environmental science, I just want to talk a little bit about the structure and content of our book. The book is divided into 8 major sections. The first 3 chapters deal with basic concepts in environmental science. The first chapter introduces the concept of sustainability in the context of Easter Island, the collapse of Easter Island. We use that as a metaphor for the current situation of humans on the planet. What can we learn from the lessons of Easter Island? And we use that to introduce the principles of sustainability. Chapter 2 is a chapter on some really basic physics and chemistry, matter, changes in matter, law of conservation of matter, energy, and thermodynamics. And again, you can see that in the case of chapter 2, the basic structure is the same. You have the sections of the chapter, key terms, review questions, and then we have 2 case studies, one related to policy and one science in depth. Then chapter 3 is a chapter about systems, what systems are, homeostasis, positive and negative feedback, and how you can use that to understand environmental problems. And then the second section is a section on how the natural environment works. We start out with the physical systems of the planet, solar energy, heat from the Earth's core, ocean and atmospheric circulation, the rock cycle, and so on. Then we have 4 chapters related to ecology, looking at ecosystem energetics, the flow of matter in the environment, which is really a chapter on biogeochemical cycles, talking about the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and so on. A section on biomes, and then a chapter on succession. Then we have a section on human systems. And so chapters 9, 10, and 11 introduce the economy and society using the same tools of energy and material flows and systems that we use to characterize natural systems. And we show how humans are connected to the environment by these flows of energy, materials, and ecosystem services, and how many environmental problems are indeed caused by humans altering these energy material flows in ways that disrupt the ability of the environment to support life. So we talk about carrying capacity, we look at the economy from an ecological perspective using energy material flows, and then we talk about the driving forces of environmental change. And here we talk about, you know, what actually causes forests to be cut or CO2 to be released to the atmosphere. We talk about population, affluence, technology, and institutions and policy. So with those concepts in mind, now we move on to talk about specific environmental problems. We have a section on global environmental change, which is biodiversity, climate change, and ozone depletion. Then we have a section on living off the land, where we talk about soils, agriculture, and forests. We talk about air and water, both from the resource side in terms of water supply, but also on the pollution side for both air and water. And then we have a section on energy, fossil fuels, nuclear, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. We also have a chapter on materials, where we talk about materials life cycle analysis and the importance of recycling, reusing materials, and so on. And then we close with a chapter on how we can use this information to move towards a sustainable future. So from a content perspective, that gives you a very brief overview of what the book attempts to do. So let's look at the actual content. So let's dive into a chapter. I'm going to go to biodiversity. So I'm going to click on biodiversity, and that will again reveal the structure of the chapter of biodiversity, the learning objectives, and then the sections of the chapter. And so to start reading the book, you would simply click on the first section. We start off every chapter with a little story, a little vignette, which tries to engage the student in the content that will be covered in this chapter. In the case of biodiversity, it's a story about Biosphere 2 and why the attempt for these people to live in Biosphere 2 failed. So it includes a little story about that. And you can see up here on the right-hand side are the navigation arrows that we use to go forward and backward. So to continue reading the chapter, I simply click on this right navigation arrow, and now I'm taken to the next section in this chapter, which is defining what biodiversity is. And so here you see one of the big differences in value added of this type of book is the ability to add video. There's a tremendous wealth of excellent video that's freely available on the web that can really enrich a student's learning experience. And I'm sure many of you use video in class, but here you can actually bring it to the material and put it in context of what the text is actually trying to deliver in the case here of what biodiversity is. So here we start out with a little interview with E.O. Wilson, who speaks very eloquently on the importance of biodiversity and the extinction crisis. And so again, you can just simply, you're done with this section, you click the next section. These sections are designed to provide sort of an optimal amount of information per page. Here's a section now on the patterns and mechanisms for biodiversity. Again, note that we have the search menu is always available. You have the table of contents to the left, and up here above the title of the section that you're in, if I click back on chapter 12, I go back to the chapter landing page. While we're on the subject of videos, I wanted to show you a couple of other examples of how we use videos in the book. So I'm going to skip ahead to the biomes chapter. So now I'm in the chapter on biomes, and in particular the section on tropical savannas. So here's content related to what a tropical savanna is, and then we have a couple of videos. One is a nice video on the global pulse of fire around the world produced by NASA. So I click on that, and this is an actual animation on fire. You can see the time date stamp clicking away at the bottom. And so this is a powerful tool. And for example, we use this to talk about the fires in sub-Saharan Africa that are very seasonal and how that affects the type of agricultural societies that evolve there, how that contributes to the production of black carbon and aerosols in the context of climate change, and lots of other places in the book where we use that. And so there's not, you can put a map up, a static map up of that, but it's certainly not the experience. You don't get the dynamism, the annual pulse of fire on the planet, which really makes it come alive. I'm going to skip ahead here now to the energy chapter, another example of a video. So here we're now in the chapter on renewable energy and energy efficiency. And here we have a video from, I believe it's a Danish, no, I think it's from the UK. And this is, I won't play it because it gets, but it describes how a wind turbine works. Now you can put a static image up there and I can wax poetic on how a wind turbine actually works, but here's an actual video. So you can actually, the student can actually get a nice in-depth, succinct description of how a wind turbine works. And again, note below this the use of high-resolution images, which you can do on the web, which really helps bring the content alive. So I'm going to go back to my biodiversity chapter where we were reading. And so how can students personalize this text? So when a student purchases the book, every time they log in, they're logging into their own personal library, which includes this book. So let's say I'm reading, there's a section here which I think is very important. So if I select that text string, it enables me to add an annotation. And you can see this little button pops up where I click annotate, and now I can add a note. I click save, and now I've created, in essence, highlighted in the electronic world that text string. And when I come back to it and I'm studying for a test, I can mouse over that. When I roll my cursor over that, the actual annotation pops up. And if I click on it, I can edit it to either add it, delete it, or modify it in some particular way. Another thing that I can do as a student is bookmark this page. If it's particularly important for some reason in preparation for an exam, I can go up here in the far top of the page, and there's a bookmarks tab there, and I click that, and I say bookmark this page. And so now I've added this page to my bookmarks. And anywhere in the book that I go, if I go up and click on this bookmarks tab, there's the page that I've bookmarked, and I can navigate directly to that page. So what else? Notice that we also, another nice feature of electronic books is the ability to internally reference material. So, many textbooks say, oh, remember back in chapter 5 when we talked about cellular respiration or something like that. Well, students generally will not take the time to leaf back to chapter 5 and then go look for the page and the section on the page where you talked about cellular respiration. But here you can actually do that. So for example, somewhere on this page, so we're down here talking about what explains the geographic distribution of species. And so one of the things that we talked about back in chapter 7, we're in chapter 12 here, was that the distribution of net primary production by latitude. And so when I click on this chapter 7 link, it's going to open up, it doesn't take me away from the page, it opens up a new link and goes back to the distribution of biomes where it shows how net primary production itself is distributed, which is then, I can then go back and say, okay, now I understand. I remember what I learned back in Chapter 7. And so this internal referencing is a very powerful way to keep students connected to content across chapters. We also have the ability to connect with our case studies. And so in every chapter, as I mentioned, we have at least 2 case studies. So in this particular chapter, we have a case study on why there are so many fish species, and we use, whoops, I went to the wrong page. Why there are so many fish species in certain hotspots around the world, and they can click to go to that case study, read it, and come back to the page. So this internal referencing is a really, really nice feature. So let's now talk with some basic navigation under our belts. Let me talk to you about some of the things that the platform can do in terms of assessment and evaluation and how you can customize this for this class. So at the end of certain sections, you have the ability to add self-assessment. So let's say that after this section of the biodiversity, you want students to be able to kind of check in and see how well they have learned the content up to this point. And so here are some self-assessment questions that have been added. So for example, why does species richness tend to decrease with increasing latitude? And so you can type an answer and then click check your answer, and we have a suggested answer which directs the student to what concepts are important for that particular question. And again, they can then close that. These questions are not graded. They're not turned in, but they're for the students to for their own self-assessment. Question 2, compare the two different types of speciation. I type in my response, and there's a suggested response for the students. So as an instructor, now once you've adopted this book, you can add or delete these self-assessment questions. So if you want to modify these questions, for example, I just go up to the top of the page, my editing wheel, and say edit content. Now as an instructor, you'll have the ability to do that. I'm going to click edit content, and now a new window will pop up where I can modify the self-assessment. So notice there's a tab up here with different functions. I click on the self-assessment, and so down here it shows me the existing questions. So those are you saw the 3 questions that that were there. So let's say I wanted to add a question to this self-assessment. So I can choose whether it's a multiple choice or free response, and then I type in my question. What is 2 plus 2? The suggested response is 4. I click Save Question. Close that and save the entire self-assessment module, and click View. And now you'll see that at the bottom of this page with a self-assessment, there's now my new question, and I've added. So it's instructors you can add your own questions to self-assessments, and you can add them anywhere you want. On any particular page, you can click that edit tool, click self-assessment, and load some questions in for students. And we found that this is students really like having these strategically placed self-assessments for their learning the material. So what about exams? So let me demonstrate how you can create and administer an exam online within the context of this book and the course that you would administer. So let's say I want to put an exam or a quiz in after we've completed chapter 12. And this, you could do this anywhere in the book, but I've just created a little example here to make it simple. So notice here for chapter 12, on the landing page, I see down at the bottom of a biodiversity question pool. And so, as I'll show you in a moment, when I'm logged in as a student, I don't see this. But when I'm logged in as an instructor, you have access to these question pools. And so here is a sample question pool that I've created, which has 2 multiple choice questions in it. And the correct answer is indicated in bold. And so you can add or modify questions in the same way that you modify other material. In the book, you simply go to the editing wheel, click edit, and now I'm in the question pool. And you can see the 2 questions that were already existed are sitting there. And so I can delete those questions or add my own question. So let's say I want to add a question to this question pool. I'll click add question. Let's say I'm going to add, you can choose different types of questions: essay, short answer, multiple answer, true, false, and so on. I'll do a true, false. And so I'll do 2 + 2 = 4, and I will click, is that a true or false? So here I indicate what the right answer is. So that is true. If I wanted to put in some feedback for the students, I could. And then I click add question. Whoops, I accidentally clicked add a new question too. So I move that. So there's my new question that I've created. And I'll click save, and it tells me that I've saved this new question pool. And so now when I go back to, you can see that question has been added there. So now I go back to the biodiversity landing page. In my question pool, it's been added. So question pools. Let's talk before I show you how to use that in exam. So you may have we have our own question pool. We have, I think I said 500, but it's actually closer to 800 multiple choice questions that are organized by chapter. And these are all have been loaded into the system and are available to you in the question pools for each chapter. And so you can create an exam using those questions that are available, or you can add your own in the way that I just showed. And if you have a question test bank in Microsoft Word or other format or Excel, we can also import that for you and load it into your course, essentially, where you can have it available in these pools. We also have the ability to export our question pool. So these 800 questions can be exported in a CSV format so that they can be imported into Blackboard or other standard LMS systems, if that's what you want to do. So we have a lot of flexibility there. So how would I use a question pool, whether it's our own or something that you created or some hybrid? So let's say after chapter 12, I wanted to add a midterm exam. How would I do that? So I'd go up here in the very upper left, and there's a little icon that says add content. I click on that, and it shows me the different type of content that I can add, and I click more, and I go down to exam. So you can see there's lots of stuff you can add, some of which you probably won't be interested in, but some of which you probably will be interested in. So I'm going to choose exam and say create exam. And so now I'm going to create an exam for chapter 12. So when I pull the exam up, it shows me what question pools are available. So this depends on what you've created or what you've imported. So that biodiversity question pool that I just showed you shows up, and I've created this example so it's the only one that shows up to be simplified, but there may be multiple question pools that you want to pick from. So I'll select this question pool and say, okay, show me the questions that are available. So now it's going to reveal all the questions that are in that pool. And so there are those 3 questions, including the one that I added. And I can simply choose whether I want to include or not include those questions in the exam. And I can also choose the weight of each question in terms of points. I'll just leave it at 1 for now. So once I've done that, I click Create. Whoops, I need a title. Thank you for reminding me. Midterm exam, and I will click Create, and I've now created a new exam. And so I could continue to edit it, or I could actually publish it, which means to publish it to the class so it's available for students to take. So I'll click Publish. It tells me that I've published it. And now when I go to the chapter landing page, you will see that this exam now exists below the question pool. So now I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull up another browser that I've logged into as a student. So I'm going to be showing you 2 different views, how a student will see this and how you'll see it as an instructor. So over here, I'm logged in as a student by the name of Carl. So if I go to chapter 12 as a student, what will I see? I will see the exam that was just created and placed here, but I won't see the question pool. So that gives you a sense of how we partition the content between the instructor and the student. So let me go back to the instructor version. So now if I want to activate this exam and include it in my gradebook, I go up here to the upper left, and I have a little icon which is my gradebook for the class. So if I click on this, it will show me all the people who are registered in the class, and we have a bunch of test people here who we signed up. And down here is this guy Karl Pakowski, who is this fake student that we developed an account for. So down here, it shows all the assignments and exams that you might have created, and it asks you to say which one you want to activate and add to your gradebook. So here's this midterm exam that I just created. I'm going to add it, and it's now added to my gradebook. I'm going to save the gradebook. Whoops, I didn't put the weight in. Oh, thanks for reminding me. So this is determines what percentage of your final grade you want each particular gradebook entry. So let's say I'm going to have 5 exams or something, and each one's 20%. So I'll just put 20 in there and save it. So now I have this exam in my gradebook. So how does this work for students? So let's now go back to the student view. So now here I am, Carl, the student, and I'm done with chapter 12, and I click on the midterm exam, which I'm supposed to take. So I do the exams. I'll do a couple correct ones and a few wrong ones. And once I'm done taking the exam, I can either save it if I'm halfway through and need to stop to eat lunch or answer the phone or something. I can save it and come back, and it'll save everything that I've done thus far. And when I'm done, I click Submit. So I'll say that I'm done with this exam, and I submit it. I click OK, and I get immediate feedback from the system, which shows me that in fact what the correct answers are. And so you get this very immediate feedback for the student. And so how does this look back for the instructor view? I'm now back to my my gradebook, so I'll have to refresh this because Carl has just taken the exam. And if I go to the gradebook, I now see Karl Pakowski has taken the exam and he missed 0. I guess I didn't get any right. But if I click on the individual, I can go to their particular entry in the gradebook and see their scores. In this particular case, there's only one score, but all the assignments and exams would show up here, and I could click on the exam and go look at. I actually clicked on the wrong thing. I can go to Carl's actual exam and see what he did. So this gives you a kind of a quick overview of the LMS and how easy it is to add exams and other assignments that you might want to do. So with that, that gives you an idea of the evaluation and assessment portion of this. Let me quickly talk about how you would actually implement this for your class. So let's say that you decided to adopt this book. Here's what happens. Now I'm going to navigate to a different site, which is actually the site for my class at BU last fall that I taught. So note I'm now at a different URL up here, which indicates that this is the class for the fall of 2012 at BU. The material still looks pretty much the same, but there's some additional material. So once this book is published to your site, you now have complete control over it. You can, as I said, move chapters around, add content, add video, add articles, add exams, and so on, and it becomes your class. So for example, what I did in my class was I added some material. I added my syllabus I put online, where students that had ready access when they logged in to all the material associated with the book. I also added material. We have discussion sections with our course, so I have a whole section on discussion material related to that they can download, the syllabi for the discussion material, assignments that they download, and so on. So this is an example of the type of customization that you can do for your class. So while we're on the subject of that, let me just show you how you could add other types of material. So let's say that I'm going back now to my instructor view. Let's say that in the water chapter, you have a set of lecture notes that you really like to use and want to help organize your lectures. So I could go to the water chapter here and go up to the top here and say add content. And here I'm going to add an article. And so I've conveniently on my desktop I have a set of water lecture notes, which is simply a Microsoft Word document that has an outline with some fairly modest formatting. So I'm going to upload that and add that as an article to my water chapter. So I click Add Article, and I'm just going to say these are water lecture notes. If I click on classification, I tell the system where I want to put this content. Now, since I'm already in the water chapter, it automatically knows that, and you can see it's selected down here, the water chapter. So I would simply keep that and click Create, and it says I've created a new article, but I haven't really added anything yet, so I'll go back to Edit. So if you have a lot of content in the Word document, there's the capability to upload that and retain formatting. So you see this little Word icon here. I click on this, and I could go over to my Word document here and open it up. So here's my water lecture notes, kind of this little simple outline. I'll just copy that and paste it into this box and say OK. And now it's pasted my material into this editing box and retained the formatting. So then I would just simply click Save. And now the question, anytime you create content, you have the ability to control whether or not you make it viewable by students. And so if I click Publish here, now it's going to go live, and students will actually be able to see it. And if I go back to so there's what it actually looks like online. If I go back to the chapter landing page for water, you will then see this content has been added way down here at the bottom, water lecture notes. So if I wanted to change the position of that, I go up to my editing wheel, click content sequence, and then go down and drag the water lecture notes to wherever I want it. If I wanted to go way up at the very top, I would just drag it up here to the top and put it, say, after the lead-in. I click Save Order. It says your content has been rearranged, and now my lecture notes are here in placed right where I wanted them. So, and you can do the same thing with video, with PowerPoint, whatever other content you have, you can upload it and place it where it's pedagogically appropriate for your class. So one last point before I move to talking about instructor, before I talk about how students actually purchase a book and how it will be used, I want to show you the resources we have for instructors. We have an Instructors Portal, which I'm going to navigate to, which is only accessible by instructors, and we have a lot of ancillary material to help you implement this in your class. And here we have, for example, different material on PowerPoints, assignments, labs, and material explicitly for AP Environmental Science. So if I click on PowerPoint, you'll see that we have a PowerPoint available for every chapter in the book, and simply clicking on a title of a chapter will download the PowerPoint chapter for that book, and these are fully available for you if you want to use them. You probably have some of your own stuff, but these contain all the figures in the chapter, as well as additional content for you to use and customize as you see fit. We also have some ideas for assignments for classes, for discussion sections, or for material for the lecture portion of your class. And here we've collected some of our own assignments, plus assignments that have been contributed by instructors in other classes. It's a little slow here because I'm using Wi-Fi. But we have assignments related to ecological footprint, and then organized by topic for each chapter. Not sure why it's taking so long to load here. Just going to stop that and go back and show you the material related to labs. So if I click on labs, it will load content, and we've uploaded examples for how, if you have a laboratory portion in your class, lots of people do, there are lots of examples here for labs that people have used. So every section of the book is tagged to a environmental science topic, and you can directly navigate to that, so you can ensure that you're meeting all the needs for your environmental AP Environmental Science class. So with that in mind, one last summary statements of how this would actually work for your students. So if you decide to adopt the class, you contact us, and this book, or just the chapters that you want, you don't have to purchase all the chapters, you can pick and choose if you want, are published to a URL, and you send that link to your students. And the students navigate to that site, and then they are asked to create a username and password, and then they have to pay, in the case of our book, $50 with a credit card, and then they're in. And so every time they come back to the book and log in, they are accessing their personal version. It has all their notes, their annotations, their bookmarks, their discussion forum, their communications, and so on. And so it's a very easy process, a very standard way in which you'd buy any product on the web. And as instructor, you have control or access. You control access to that site through the members in your class, and can view all the activity and so on. So that's a quick overview of the product. Hopefully you've gotten a sense of how it works and how it might be used in your classroom. So I'm going to turn now, since we're close to the end of our hour, I want to turn to some questions that folks have answered. And the question is, do students log into an external site, like a publisher site, or can they log in through the LMS? So I think I might have just answered that. So there is a unique URL for your class, and the students navigate to that URL and log into your class at that URL. Another question was, what was the overall feedback from your students using a digital textbook rather than a paperback textbook? At BU, we did some substantial assessment of student experiences, both online surveys and in-person group meetings, and it reviewed very well. Students today are entirely comfortable with digital content and not having a physical book. This is one of the things that I was concerned about. Are students really ready to take the leap and not have that physical textbook? And it turns out that in our experience, it's not really much of a leap. That in fact, students with very few exceptions are entirely confident with all digital content. Someone else asked, can I use sections or chapters of the book, or do I need to use the entire book? You can use individual chapters. So you can publish to your site whatever you can choose what chapters you want. And we price the content accordingly based on how much you purchase. And another question, I'd like a place to publish some course materials. Would it be possible to do this with the Trunity platform? And the answer is yes. You can create your own class, and if you have PowerPoints or lecture notes or readings or whatever it might be, you can simply create your own sort of blank course and just upload content the way in which I've shown you, and organize it in a way, and you know, create a separate course and charge students, you know, 25 or 30 or 40 or 60 or 100, whatever amount of money you think is appropriate. So you don't have to have a full-blown book like this to create a course. You can start with small amounts of content and pull in content from different ways and in the ways in which I've demonstrated. One last question. Someone said, this is really great. Can I talk to you after the webinar? I'd like to discuss using your book. And the answer is, of course. I'm available. Let me pull up my contact information here. There's my email there, cutler@bu.edu, and I'm available. We also have a support team here at Trunity, which is available to help with all the sort of technical aspects of this and setting up your class, and we do it all for you. It's really, they have a great support team. So with that, I will stop and thank everyone for joining, and again, I hope you check it out. We think we have a great product here, and if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to drop me a line. All right, thanks, and have a great day.